I'm ready when you are, so we can begin when you're ready. Hello everyone. Welcome. Good to see you. My name is Daniel, and we will be starting in just a few seconds. If you'd like to just share on the chat where you are, that would be fantastic. And we'll get started in just a moment. As you can see, today's webinar is all about how to use your trial lesson effectively. So I can see we've got Ryan, hello, welcome. Scott, hello. Maurice, hello. Nice to see you. Hi, Ben, welcome. We got people joining us from all over, and thank you all for joining me today. It's really good to see you all. All right, so we'll get started in just a second. Hopefully everyone can see the slides. Hopefully everything's showing up for you and everything is visible. So I will just start by giving a short introduction about myself. And if you have any questions as they come up, let me know and I'll be happy to answer them for you. So let's get started, guys. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. So I've been teaching on italki as a professional teacher since 2018. So it's been about 4.5 years on italki, which has been quite an amazing journey. I also work as a university English professor, professional author, writing coach, and podcaster. And I teach a range of English courses on italki. I write some articles for italki, you might have seen them. I run my own teaching company, which specializes in academic English, and I host a podcast for English teachers called ESL Talk. So that is just a little bit about me, and I'm looking forward to learning about you guys and hearing a little bit from you as well, and also answering your questions that you might have. So I'll be happy to try to help you with that. If you need anything, especially when it comes to trial lessons. And if I have any free time, I love learning Chinese and Korean on italki as well. So I do like to be a learner as well as a teacher. So it's quite nice to have both those sides. So yeah, wonderful. I'm glad to hear everything's working. It looks a little slow on my side, but as long as you guys can see and hear everything, that's all that matters. So that's great. All right. So today, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to cover? Oh, a little bit too ahead of myself. So how to use your trial lesson effectively. So we're going to cover 4 main sections today. First, we'll start with a mindset shift. From what I've seen, from conversations I've had with other teachers, from kind of what I've learned on my italki journey, a lot of teachers face very similar issues with trial lessons. So we'll talk a little bit about that to begin. Then we'll talk about some steps you can take before your trial lesson, during your trial lesson, and after the trial lesson. There'll also be opportunities in between each section to ask questions. So feel free, and I can see the comments here. So I'll be happy to address those as we go through the webinar. Welcome to everyone else who's joined. Hi, Robbie. Hi, Delph. Scott, hello again. Tyson, good to see you. Hi, Benice. Melinda from Chicago. Thank you for staying up late for us. Jiomi, welcome. Hi. All right, so let's get started. Couple of things to think about here. So some common questions that I hear and see, and a few things that were picked up by italki as well, which we can try to address are here. So how can I convert my students to packages? That's a pretty common question that we'll go into and talk about. How can I get my students to book more classes with me? What should I do before, during, after my trial lesson? And many students only book 1 or 2 classes with me. How can I change this? So these are really common questions and statements that come up from teachers. And what I'll try to do today is try to address these points, try to address these questions, and try to talk about how we can shift our approach, or how we can change a few things that we do, a few small things that we can do to help us try to hopefully solve these issues and solve these questions. So let's go into this in a bit more detail. So we can increase conversion in a few different ways. When I say conversion, I mean, instead of just having 1 lesson at a time, or 1 or 2 lessons, or even just 1 trial lesson, we can think longer term. So packages, long-term students, how can we do this? So there's a few things that I'll go through, and I'll try to give you some examples as well to make it a bit more simple. So first thing, seems simple, preparing properly. Did you contact the student before the class? Did you check their level, needs, and what content to prepare? Some teachers, they say, they filled in the form. I know what to do. I can just do the trial lesson. So what's really useful and I found helps a lot is a quick message to the student. And what's great is that recently italki has actually implemented this, where when a request is made, a message will go to that student. So personalize that message if you can. You can definitely put the student's name will be automatically populated as well. So use that feature. Hello, for example, maybe Dania. Hello, Dania. Thank you for booking a trial lesson. Are there any specific areas that you'd like to improve for your English or your Spanish or your French? What goals do you have? So a couple of questions just to make sure you understand exactly what the student needs. And then their level. What level would you say they are? If you're not familiar with the Cepha scale, the A1, A2, those, then take a look at them. And maybe the student doesn't know what their level is. So when you prepare, make sure you have a range of activities, or maybe you have some easier activities and some more difficult activities. That could be really helpful. Because then when you start the trial lesson, the student knows that you've asked them, you've prepared, it's much more professional, and it seems much more organized. So that's the first step that you can take, hopefully. Thinking long-term. This is really important. This is something I didn't used to do when I first started on italki, but over time and as I progressed, I started doing this, and it helped me a lot with packages and long-term students. So are you preparing one lesson at a time? Or do you have a set program of learning for 5, 10, or 20 lessons? And can you share these with the students? So in your trial lesson, if you say, yeah, we can just go one class at a time, we can just go slowly, we can just, we can figure it out as we go along. That might be okay for some students who just want general speaking practice, but many students really want a plan. They want to see how they can improve their language skills over a long period of time. Maybe they have an exam, or they have a job interview to prepare for, or for work. Maybe they are applying for university in another country. So how are you going to help them reach their goals? What can you do to help them solve the difficulties they're having? Because I know that for me as a student, if a teacher prepares and says, I've prepared a plan for you, we're going to look at these things, how does that sound? Wow, I want to book again with that teacher. As opposed, or instead of just, we'll meet again next week and we can do some other stuff. It's not as specific. So another really important key element that might really help you. Asking the right questions. I found now, after 4 years on italki, that the trial lesson should be more you listening and more the students speaking. So if we can ask good questions, we can get a really clear picture of the students' needs, and we can be really clear on how we can help them to succeed. So are the needs of the student 100% clear? Really understand the student's needs. Did you set goals together with the student? So instead of saying, we'll do this, we can ask them, how do you feel about doing this? Or maybe we can ask them, what kind of activities or materials work for you? Or how would you, book your class? Or how would you use your time if you were the teacher? These little questions not only help build that trust and build that long-term student, but also mean that you're really clear so you know exactly what to do. We don't have to worry and panic and think, oh my God, is this what the student wants? These are the goals we've set. We can make a plan based on those goals. We can then hopefully convert to a package, and we can go long-term, and we have a clear focus then. So that's another thing you can do to help you. And one more point, having a clear process and a routine. So how do your lessons run? What does a typical lesson look like? What materials do you use? What learning aids do you use? Do you use Google Docs, slides, PPTs, PDFs, these kinds of things? If you share that with your student, hopefully they'll be more invested in you as a teacher, and they'll be more likely to want to book with you in the future. And maybe you can show them, you can give them a little preview. So, hey, if we're going to have another class next Friday, here's what we'll do. Here's what we can look at. Oh, wow, you've prepared really nice materials. You have really clear instructions. You have really nice materials that are going to help me achieve my goals. If we can share that with the student, again, that's a really nice way to increase conversion. Of course, the time is only short for the trial lesson. So maybe you can't do all of this, but if you can do some of this, it'll go a long way to helping you hopefully be more successful with conversions and with getting more long-term students. Now, does anyone have any questions about what I just discussed and what I just mentioned there, just about kind of shifting some of the approaches that we have? Hello, Mercy, welcome. Hi, Dania, welcome. Yeah, if you have any questions, now is a great time. But what I wanted to just mention about this is focus on the big picture. When you focus on that big picture with your student in the trial lesson, that should hopefully result in long-term students, more packages, and hopefully more income for you as a teacher as well. Always think about that big picture. And if you maybe have a second class and the student stops, well, why did they stop in the second class? Maybe they didn't see the big picture. And what you can try to do is always connect back. We talked about your goals in the trial lesson. So next class, we're going to work on speaking. And here are some activities we're going to do. And here are some materials we're going to do. So again, simple, easy things you can do to help you start building and converting more students from trials. So that all sounds great, Daniel. But yes, I have a question. I'm just going to go back. Thank you, Dania. I'm just going to go back just for a moment. What about the students who say, I don't know, or whatever works for me? It's a great question. Some students do say this. They don't really know. And what you might have to do there, Dania, is when you start with them, maybe the first class, or they say, I don't know, whatever works, make some suggestions based on what has worked. So you could say something like, Dania, okay, that's fine. What has worked for some of my other students is A. How does that sound? And then at least you have proposed something to them and they've given their consent of, yeah, okay, let's try that. So you can try that, and then it's a small process of constantly adapting. So after that class, if that worked, how did that work for you? Was that something you found useful? Was that something you found enjoyable? Yes, great, okay. So maybe next time we can try something similar. We can continue towards that goal. Or that didn't work for me, Dania. All right, that's fine. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for feeding back to me. So something else that's worked really well for some of my students is B. How do you feel about trying that next class? Yeah, we'll give that a try. So again, give options, and then that way the student feels like they're being listened to, even if they're not very clear what they want. But that's a really good point, Daniel. So thank you for bringing that up. Students do not have a clear goal or prefer to converse. Benice, yeah, again, I mentioned this earlier. They just want to converse, that's fine. Give them choice, give them some options, that's fine. Okay, well, next class, I'd like you to decide what we're going to talk about. So I have 3 options here, 3 topics. What topic interests you the most? Okay, topic B, wonderful, great. I'll prepare something based on topic B. And then hopefully the more you learn about your student and the more you involve them in the learning process, hopefully the more invested they'll be. But those are great questions, and they do happen, they do occur. And again, it just depends on your student and knowing your student. So in the trial lesson, kind of make some proposals, make some suggestions, get them invested, because then they'll think, wow, Benice really listened to me, or Dania really listened to me. So I think I am going to book that class because they're trying their best to find solutions that are going to help me improve my language skills. So before the trial lesson, what are some things we can do before? I touched on this a little before, but I'll go into a little more detail for you here. So what can we do before the trial lesson? How can I prepare properly? What should I ask my students? When should I contact them? Yeah, it can be a little bit scary when you get that request from your student and you're like, oh, what do I say? I don't know. Or maybe I'm new to teaching, or I haven't taught this kind of material before, or I haven't taught student from this country before with this language. So it can be really scary. So again, these are just some suggestions and some tips that I've picked up over the years that might be helpful for you, and feel free to try these. You can prepare for your trial lesson by checking the student profile. Again, we're not creeping on students. We just want to understand them and understand a little bit about them so we can help them and hopefully, build a long-term working relationship with that student. So take a look at the student's info. What is their first language? So they might speak multiple languages. And again, for example, for me, when I have a student that speaks Korean, for example, I can speak some Korean. Wonderful. I can build that connection right away. Oh, I see that you're from Korea. I used to live there, or I speak that language too. Awesome. So again, you're building that connection. You're building that memorable interaction. Have they taken lessons before? Maybe they're brand new to italki. Maybe they've taken lots of lessons on italki. Maybe they've had lots of different teachers on italki. So again, if you can understand this, that's going to get a clearer picture. It's going to make it easy to ask those questions and for the student to hopefully invest in you because you've taken the time to invest in them. Where do they live at the moment? Maybe they live in another country. Oh, I saw that you're living in Brazil right now. Are you working there? Are you studying there? Oh, wow. They actually took some time to actually ask me that question. So this is really key, and this can help us prepare really well. And sometimes I've done this and I've got it wrong, and they're like, no, that's just old, or I did that by mistake. But again, it's still a memorable point that you can bring up in your lesson. So contacting the student, did you reach out to the student to introduce yourself? Confirm the time, confirm the lesson type and your communication method. Sometimes I've had problems with this, and I'm sure you guys have had these problems too, where, oh, I don't know how to use Zoom, or I'm not sure how to use the italki classroom, or what's your Skype ID, etc. So maybe just double check with the student, especially if they're new to italki, because this can be really crucial. If it's their first class and they can't connect, or they're not able to use the materials, or the time isn't quite right, just double check with them. I just want to double check. We're meeting on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Perfect. Okay, great. My Skype ID is, or the link for Zoom is. See you then. Just a little thing like that that ensures students will show up and that you'll be able to connect and make the most of that time. Because it does happen sometimes, and it's just a little easy thing you can do to make sure your attendance goes up, hopefully as close to 100% as possible. The next point is preparing questions and activities. So did you prepare some questions and activities for the student based on their profile messages? So if you know a little bit about that student, maybe you can tailor your questions and tailor your approach to them. Again, you might have to send them one or two messages just to really be clear on that. But it's just a nice way to break the ice. It's a nice way to spend 3 or 4 minutes at the beginning just to discuss, and make that connection, make the student feel comfortable, and make them feel like, yep, this is a teacher I want to learn with beyond today, beyond the trial lesson. So that's a really easy win and a really simple thing we can do to help us. This one's really huge, and it seems kind of weird. Like, why would I need to do this? Again, we don't have to be super detailed and make dossiers or anything, but just having a pen and paper ready to take notes before, during, and after, it really helps to better serve your students. Benish, you mentioned in the first class, in the trial lesson, that blah, blah, blah. Or you mentioned in your message that, oh, wow, this teacher's really organized. They've really prepared well, and they're really, invested in me, and they really care about my learning and improving my skills. So notes is really nice because it helps you to better serve your students and deliver good trial lessons. And it also, makes sure that you can be as prepared and comfortable and relaxed as well, because of course, when we're teaching for the first time, we might show the student we're very relaxed and calm, but I know inside sometimes we're like, oh my God, panicking. So if you have some notes to fall back on as well, it shows that you're a little bit more organized, calm, and it should hopefully reflect to the student as well. Hopefully that makes sense. So just 4 suggestions for you there. Any questions about that? Anything you want to ask or anything you want to confirm or clarify? Again, the key takeaway from this section is the better we know our student, the better we can serve them and deliver for them. A teacher who's prepared, organized, and listens to their student will be much more likely to create an environment where the student wants to continue. I know when we're nervous, and I've done this, we tend to talk a lot, and we tend to speak a lot in the trial lessons, and the student's like, well, I want to talk to you, or I want to talk about this, or I want to share this. So again, by listening more, by taking notes more, by making sure that we've taken time to know our student and understand them, that should really help. And it's quite interesting now, because in the trial lessons that I have these days, sometimes I've had comments like, oh, no one ever asked me that before, or, oh, I didn't even realize that, or I didn't think I could do this. So it can really help motivate students as well. So yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. Sounds super clear and useful. I'm glad to hear it. All right. Let's get into the good stuff. During the trial lesson, when we're actually in the trial lesson, what can we do to help us? And again, few things we can talk about here. I only have 30 minutes. What am I supposed to do? Should I just teach my regular class materials? What if the student doesn't like what I prepared? What should I be writing down, taking notes of? I just mentioned this. So 4 things here we can kind of focus on. And again, these are the questions, the most common questions that come up and the most common issues that some teachers face. So let's have a look at this here. So how can you deliver the best trial lesson? How can you make sure your trial lesson is the best that it can be? So the first part, it sounds simple, and I've put some timings here to help you. You might want to note this down. Establish a genuine connection with your student. It's really easy to kind of put on your teacher face and just be, going through it and just trying to be as professional as you can, but it can be really crucial to establish that connection and take a few minutes to ask some basic questions: their background, their work study, where they live, why they're studying this language. Now, again, we don't have to get too personal, but just a few things just to break the ice, relax the student, make them aware that you've taken some time to understand them. That can go a really long way. And being genuine as well. That's really, really valued. And students know when you're being genuine and when you're not. So that's something that I would really promote. And next, listening and responding to their needs. So what skills do they need to improve? Why? What do they need to achieve this? Why did they choose you? How can you solve their problem? So again, questions like, so you said in your message that you want to improve your speaking. So why do you want to improve your speaking? Why is that a problem for you? What's been happening? Something you said that you use English for work. So what was the situation? Could you give me an example? Okay. So how would you feel if you were able to speak more confidently? Okay, great. These are some questions. These W questions, as I like to call them. It can be really nice ways to allow the student to open up a little, share a little bit about their experience and where they are in their journey. And that's going to help you, hopefully, help solve their problem. Why did they choose you? This seems like a kind of a weird question, but it can be really nice to know why students are choosing you and why they chose to reach out to you. So sometimes I ask, why did you book a lesson with me? Was there any reason for that? And they say, I read your reviews, or I watched your video, or I looked at the courses you offer, and I thought this was really helpful, or this would be useful to me. Great. That helps you better focus what you should teach and maybe some lessons that are going to be more popular and why and what your student needs. So that could be something that you could think about as well and take notes on that, because that's going to help you as a teacher improve as well. And how can you solve that problem? So, for example, a student might say, I need to improve my English speaking for work because I work in an international company and it's really important to speak in English. And I might say, okay, how can I solve that problem? Okay, thank you for sharing that with me. I think I understand. You said you want to improve your English communication for work, right? Yes, okay, got it. So how would you feel if we looked at some role plays and some situations specific to banking? Because you work for a bank, right? Okay, so for example, something like that. Oh, I'm sorry, let me just put that away. So yeah, something like that. So, okay, let's look at some role play specific to banking. Let's look at some vocabulary that you might have to face. What are some tasks that you need to do in your job? Sending emails, okay. Presentations, okay. So what we could do is we could focus on writing emails. We could do that maybe as a homework task. We could spend some time checking it in the lesson, and then presentation skills. Maybe we could plan and prepare a presentation, and then maybe for homework, you could practice that or record that. How would you feel about that? Great. Okay, perfect. So again, this is just an example of what you might want to ask. So discussing, confirming goals and targets. This has been a game changer for me, I think. Work with the student, take a note down, maybe on a Google Doc or even in the notes in the chat on italki Classroom or on Skype or Zoom. What are the 3 goals you can set with your student? Short term, medium term, long term. So I asked the student, what do you want to be able to do by next month? What do you want to be able to do in 3 to 6 months? What do you want to be able to do in 12 months? Again, your student might not want this, but just to have them think about it will be a better way for them to book lessons with you more consistently, because they have that goal to work towards. And the short-term one, they can make progress quickly. The medium-term one, they can keep working towards. And it's in the horizon, it's close. The longer-term one is an ultimate goal. You're going to help them do that, hopefully, through your questioning, through your teaching, through your materials. So how will you achieve them together? Does the student agree? So why don't we say short-term, first of all, that you'll be more confident in your speaking, which means you'll be able to speak for 2 to 3 minutes without too much hesitation. Do you think that's something we could do in the next three to 4 lessons? Yeah, I think so. Great. Tick that off. Medium term, be able to deliver a 15-minute presentation using only English. Do you think that's something you'd be able to do in the next 3 to 6 months? Could be even shorter, could be 1 to 2 months, depending on the student. Again, okay, well, what I can do is I can support you with materials, I can give you vocabulary, we can practice certain skills for grammar, etc., for the medium term. And then long term, maybe it's going to be, can I write effective emails to my colleagues and coworkers in other countries without any issues, without any lack of clarity, without any errors, etc.? Okay, yeah, we can work on that. Every lesson we'll do 1 email on a different topic, a different type of email, and hopefully by the end of the course or by the end of the program, by the end of the package, you'll be able to do that consistently. How does that sound? Wonderful, great. Where do I book my package? That's the dream anyway. So outline the next steps and follow up. Might take the last 5 minutes of the class. What does the student need to do next? So give them a little homework task. If you give them something to follow up on, they're much more likely to book again, because you've said, I'd like you to do this for the next class. We didn't book the next class yet. That's fine. So reflection. Could you share with me reflection. Yeah, how was the class? How was everything? Are you clear on what we discussed? Is there anything you'd like to check or confirm? Okay, assessment. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure of your language ability. Perhaps we could do a short assessment. Like there are some, I know for my students, we have a short English proficiency. It's about 10 minutes, which can help me get a better level. Would you be okay to do that? Is that okay? Just so I can better help you? Yeah, sounds good. What will you cover in the next 5, 10, 20 classes? Again, you don't have to say every single class, but just give them an idea of what might come ahead in the future. That could be really useful. What do your packages offer? You might say something like, oh, so you've talked about you wanting to improve your speaking. I actually have a package specifically for speaking, specifically for business people like yourself. Does that sound like something that might be interesting to you? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. When can you schedule the next lesson? So I actually have some time coming up next Friday. Are you free next Friday? Would that time work for you? And again, you don't have to push, you could just ask the question and at least it's in their mind at the end of the class. And hopefully they'll be more likely to just go ahead and book the next class. Did you send your notes? I use something called Evernote for all my students. So I just take some notes on Evernote and then I just share the link with them at the end of the class or the PDF. Then that way they have the notes, they can see everything you discussed. They can see everything that you talked about in the class. And again, they have a really clear picture so that hopefully they'll look at that and say, yep, I'm ready. Here's what I have to do next. I'm going to do that homework. Oh, I need to book another class. It's booked like that. So I know I've talked a lot, but I've tried to just give you some practical solutions and some timings to help you with that 30 minutes. Because some teachers just teach their regular class and that's fine for some students, but for others, maybe they want to think more long-term. And I think even if you just do this for 30 minutes, it's going to be really nice for you to use this as a starting point, even if it is just general conversation or moving along. At least that way you have a clear focus that you can keep going back to and the student can keep going back to as well. So any questions about what I've mentioned here in this section about during the trial lesson? Feel free to share any questions or anything you want to clarify on those points. The main takeaway here is it's kind of used for you to sell yourself. Of course, you have your profile and you have your video and your reviews, but until the student actually meets you, they don't really know that much about you. So this is an opportunity for you to show why you're the expert that can help them. And you might not be an expert when it comes to certain things, but it can just be a really nice way for you to say, this is who I am, this is how I can help you, and these are the steps that we can take. If you're able to connect with your student and set out a plan for them to succeed long-term, this should translate to long-term students. Long-term plan, long-term student, hopefully long-term relationship with that student in a working context. Yes, Scott, Evernote, right? Yeah, that's just one tool. Again, you can use Google Docs or you can just use Word and send a document. It doesn't really matter. That is just one tool that I use, but there's lots of different tools available, of course. So if you have any other questions, please keep them coming. And I'm just going to go into what to look at after the trial lesson. So what are we going to look at after the trial lesson? So how do I know if the student liked my lesson? What if they don't respond to my messages? They told me they don't want to take classes now. They said the class or the package is too expensive. These are all, again, common issues, common questions, common feedback that we get from students. And again, perfectly normal. We're not going to convert every single student, but there are some things that we could try that might help us with the after the trial lesson in that process. So yes, let's talk about that, and let's hopefully give you some tools that are going to help you. So how do we follow up properly with students? Well, we can do this in a few different ways. We can do this by, first of all, sending a copy of what you discussed. So I just mentioned this. Be sure to take notes during the lesson, either on a Word doc, Google Doc, Evernote, and share this with your student. Include the goals, set, action plan, next steps, and so on. So just a bit more detail here. So I think this is a really nice way to just lay out what you've covered. And again, these are the next steps. So it's a really nice way to do that. Bernice, sorry, I just saw your message here. I do this exact format and it's been really effective. Good, because I hear other teachers doing lesson demos. I wonder if there's a place for that. Yeah, so at the last 5 minutes or so, or last 10 minutes maybe, Bernice, like I mentioned in the beginning, before the when the trial lesson starts, show them what a lesson might look like. So for me, again, I might say, Bernice, I actually have a course that I put together for speaking of a conversation. I'll just show you quickly what it might look like. So for example, if we did a class next week, here's what it might look like. So you can just maybe share the screen and show them your slides or your materials that you use. That's perfectly fine. And that's really nice as well. It just shows that you're really professional and organized. So yeah, you could definitely do that, Bernice. Melinda, like the idea of short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Yeah, I think it's really important. Bernice, I usually teach conversation practice. I feel lesson demos take out the spontaneity. Yeah, exactly. Something to do at the end if you have a couple of minutes just to show them, to preview, kind of leave them wanting more, hopefully, and ready for the next class. So yeah. Send a copy of what you discussed. We mentioned that. This one has helped me a lot as well. Discussing sending a copy of your schedule. Maybe after the class, maybe they said, look, I don't know if I want to book another class. I'm not sure what's going on. That's fine, no problem. If you're not able to set a time with your students for the next lesson, ask them for their schedule and share your schedule. So again, maybe just take a screenshot of your italki schedule so there's no confusion with timing, because we get a lot of confusion with timing. So are you free next Friday at the same time? Usually that's a good starting point. Let me know because I have a slot available. That's all you have to say. Sometimes students are like, oh, I better book that before it gets taken. So yeah, that can work. Asking for feedback, follow-up tasks. So again, not because you want to validate what you've done or because you want to feel great about what you did. Just consider sending a short message to ask the student how the lesson was and if they have any feedback. Something like, I'll just use your name, Melinda. Melinda, thank you so much for meeting me today for our trial lesson. I had a great time. It was really nice to meet you. Please let me know if you have any questions or any feedback, and I hope to see you soon. That's, it's very polite, respectful. We're not being pushy in any way. And then again, that just shows, oh, Melinda really obviously enjoyed the class too. She had a good experience. Oh, maybe I should book another class. Set some short follow-up tasks. Again, in that document that you send, next step, okay, could you maybe take a look at this article, or would you be able to complete this short assessment, or would you be able to share your ideas on this question or this statement? Again, that's a really nice way to maintain communication and or bookings for future classes or packages. And keeping in touch, helping, not selling. This is really important. So do you have new slots available? Did you update your packages? Did the student take their test or do their interview? And follow up in a friendly way as needed. So something I've done, maybe not every week or every month, maybe every couple of months, For example, students kind of go off the radar, they do their own thing, they have a test, they have an interview, they go on vacation. So now it's September, my new schedule is ready. So I might say, hi, Scott, just letting you know that my new schedule is out for the rest of the year. Have some new slots available if you want to take a look. Feel free to let me know if you'd like to book a class or just follow up. Hi, how's everything going? How was your interview? How did your IELTS test go? How are you settling into the new country that you moved to? Just friendly. We're not trying to push book, but it's just showing that I'm still here, I'm still available. Yeah. Ben, any data on percentage of students that book additional classes after taking a trial lesson? Are you talking about for me or a general picture? Let me know and I'll try to answer that for you. Yeah. Any data on percentage of students? So if we're talking about my experience and I haven't really got a percentage for it, Ben, but usually, in general, I don't know about italki obviously because I wouldn't be privy to that information. But for me, I'd probably say it's around 65 to 75%, I would say on the whole. It just depends. Some months I found everyone books or almost everyone books. Some months I found maybe half. And again, these suggestions, these tips, this advice that I'm giving you, it's not always going to work for every single student. We know that, but it's just some little small things that we can do to show that we care, that we're invested, and that we've taken time to really get to know the students' needs and getting them involved in that process. I think that's what's really important. So the main takeaway from here, I would say, is putting all the pieces in place makes it much easier for students to continue learning with you, because you put yourself in the shoes of a student whose language level is quite low. Okay, they were able to sign up maybe they weren't able to fill in their profile fully. Maybe they weren't able to really understand your profile exactly with all the information, and they booked a trial lesson. If we add lots of complexity, it's really hard for them to continue booking classes. But if they have their first trial lesson on italki with you, and you lay everything out, you make it really simple, you make it less complex, it's going to lead to easier conversion and more bookings. So I've tried to remove as many steps as possible in terms of, okay, here's the material, I've sent it to you. Here's my schedule, I've sent it to you. Here's what we're going to do in the next class, I've sent it to you. It's much easier for that student to just continue with you than go out of their way and take time and effort and energy to find another teacher. So again, take out the steps, take out the complexity, try to make it as easy as possible for the student, and that should hopefully help as well with conversion on that. So we're right on time, we're right on schedule. We have about 7-10 minutes for questions. So please feel free to fire your questions away. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we can talk more generally about trial lessons in general. And I'll be happy to share any advice that I have with you. So feel free to put your questions in, and I will help you with that. Tyson, great question. I'll put this up on the screen. How effective has instant lessons been for you if you've used it to get additional trial lessons? This is something I tried. It was trialed a couple of years ago, actually, on italki. And I did try it, and it was a bit hit or miss because this one is a bit more spontaneous, right? So students are just browsing, like, I want to have a class right now. Maybe they're not as concerned with the teacher. They just want to practice speaking, or maybe they just want to, just have a quick lesson there and then. So I think this is difficult to really answer perfectly. But when I have used it, I have managed to get some longer term students from it. But again, you need to be prepared. You need to have something there. You need to have 2 or 3 things ready actually for this. And again, I think what I've said still holds true, still applies for these instant lessons. If you're prepared, organized, and you take a obviously you're not going to have that much time because it's instant, but if you can just take some time to quickly make sure you understand the student, that could be really useful. It's all about their experience, right, Tyson? If they have a great experience, they're much more likely to come back to you. And at the end of that instant lesson, if you say, I really hope you enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the time. I really enjoyed meeting you. If you'd like to book another lesson, you can go here. Or if you'd like to, if you'd like to look at a longer term plan, if you'd like to work on this later, or if you'd like to continue working on this, I have a course here on italki. I have a package here on italki. I can help you with that. So yeah, that would be my answer for that. Instant lessons is something that I think you should definitely try if you haven't, just to give it, it might work really well for some students. It might not work. Sorry, for some students and teachers, it might not work so well for others, but definitely worth trying. And again, you can still apply these techniques and these strategies as best as possible as well. So I think that's really important. Any other questions? Please feel free to keep them coming, and I'll do my best to help you answer these. So Bernice, another question here. Do you charge a trial lesson close to? This is a great question, Bernice. Thank you for asking this. Okay. Yes. So the trial lesson for me isn't a lesson like a 1 hour lesson that a student would have, or a 45-minute lesson that a student would have. For me, it's about meeting the student, getting to know them, setting some goals, setting some targets, and planning for the next lesson or the next few lessons. So with me, it depends. I've experimented with different pricing. I usually charge it at half the rate of my regular 30 minutes. For example, 30 minutes, $10, 60 minutes, $20. So I usually do it at half of that. I want to make sure that, obviously the student can meet with me, because I think there's always a danger for some teachers if they put it too low to $1 or $2 or $5 even. That teacher might just, that student might just want to use it as a practice. They might not be, not always, but they might not be, really invested in long term. They might just want that cheaper class, which is fine. They have 3 trial lessons, so they can do that as they wish. So I generally put it about half of my 50% of my regular price, but that's just for me. And I'm still able to get trial lesson requests every month without too much difficulty. So yeah, it's a great question, Bernice. Ryan, I've not received any trial lessons for around 4 to 5 months. How should I attract students to book a trial lesson? This is something we've talked about before, Ryan, in the previous workshops. So if you look on the italki YouTube page, you'll actually see there's been previous workshops on this. Again, I'll kind of go over the key things. So things like your video. Do you have subtitles on your video? So that it's really clear. Your thumbnail, your intro, like your profile information. Do you have reviews? All those kinds of things. And again, starting out as a new teacher, it might be worthwhile for the first few classes, for the first few lessons, having them at a lower price, just to start getting those reviews in and start getting those lessons under your belt. And then after that, you can start working up from there. But yeah, you need to start somewhere. I know for me, when I started, my rates were lower, obviously, but then through time, I've built them up. So yeah, it's a process and it takes time. But I think just, Ryan, by trying to make your profile as engaging as possible, and having as much detailed information on there. And also one other thing, it kind of links to what I said on the trial lessons, is your lesson types. This is something that a lot of teachers maybe don't spend that much time on. But students really do that, because as a student, I've gone through that process, and I ask questions to my students. Some ask me about, I was really interested in this writing course that you have, this writing package that you have, because I went to the time to lay everything out and give clear information and instructions on that. So that can be really helpful as well. So look at the lesson types, because some people just have general conversation. But maybe try to put your twist on it. Try to put a little bit more kind of your own personal connection on it. That seems to work really well, because if you say general English or conversation practice, that's very standard. And a lot of people do the same thing. So for me, I have a speaking program called Speak Like a Native. Wow. Okay. What's this? I'm going to have a look. Okay. and then it gives an outline of what's going on as well. So yeah, that is kind of one more piece of advice that I would give as well for all of us. And again, if students are curious about those packages, or they're curious about what they've seen on your profile, again, more likely to book a trial lesson as well. So I hope that makes sense. Do we have any more questions? I've got a couple of minutes left, so I'll be happy to answer a couple more if you have them. Ben, I'm getting about 25%. Perfect. So that's a really good start, Ben. Again, feel free to try and experiment with some of these techniques and strategies and see how that works for you. And if we can get that up, that would be great. Also, instant lesson 25, that's great, and 50%. Yeah. So again, this might not push it up to 100%, but if it just helps you convert 2 or 3 more students a month, that's going to make a huge difference, right, overall. So that will be hopefully very, very useful for us. All right. I don't think we have any more questions. So that is it from me. Feel free to go to the italki YouTube page where you'll be able to watch this recording. So it will be posted on the italki YouTube page. So on YouTube, just search italki, and all the webinars, all the previous webinars are also available. So there's lots of really good material, lots of really good information for you on there. So feel free to go back and take a look at that when it's available. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to reach out. I'll try my best to answer those questions on italki. You can just send me a message if you wish. And I hope you found this useful. And it was a real pleasure to see you all today. Thanks for joining, and good luck with your teaching journeys, and wish you all the best for the rest of 2022. Thanks, guys. Have a great evening, day, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. It's evening for me. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.